والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah, it is working. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our subject today is the Takaful. Is there a justification for having Takaful? I argue that yes, there is a justification. We need to have Takaful. So the essential issue is, of course, insurance came to the Muslim countries. It is something that started in the West. We don't want to go through the history, but at least in its present form, as it is existing today in the world, the insurance business is something that started in the Western countries. There were some forms of cooperation about risks and about perils, about damages that may have happened, and different ways of cooperation in all societies. The Muslim society in the past has some forms of cooperation for that, but the way we know it today as insurance is something that started in the West. So it is a Western thing. It invaded the Muslim countries, and the first reaction was definitely complete rejection, essentially on the basis of being part of the colonial invasion that invaded the Muslim countries. So the colonial invasion was definitely exploitative invasion, and because of that, people thought of insurance as literally exploitative. When the dust is settled and many Muslim countries get independence, they are on their own now, taking their own decision, they started thinking fresh on this and several issues, including Islamic banking. So the issue of insurance, when discussed, its issues boils down to only 2 points: the point of gharar and the point of risk. They are related one to the other, definitely. The point of risk is a kind of question. Is risk something that can be solved? What is risk? Is it a commodity or a service? Or probably only a characteristic that is associated with things or with action? So if I step, I may fall down. That's action, and that is the risk of falling down. Or if I own a chair, water may come on it and spoil its surface. So that is a risk of a thing. But risk on its own, it's very difficult to think of it as something that can be solved. And this is a serious issue. Insurance is based on purchasing risk. We buy your risk if you pay us this amount of money. So this is a risk against premium. We take the risk and we buy it. We deal with it. And then on your part, you become, in that sense, secured toward that risk, but it is done against the payment of a given amount. So is risk an object of trade? This issue is a serious issue. I believe risk cannot be an object of trade, and it is wrong to think of risk as an object of trade. Risk is only a characteristic that is associated with actions or properties. So it is inseparable from properties or actions. And it shouldn't be really separated, both morally and economically. I mean, if you accept to trade risk, why don't we trade love also? Because, I mean, love or hate are something similar to risk, associated with things or with properties. Again, maybe associated with a human being. Why don't we trade beauty or ugliness? These are not things for trade. So the characteristics of properties are not things for trade, and it is inappropriate to trade them. Economically, it will be very difficult to trade them on the basis of any way that we trade other things. We trade apple and banana and computers and other things, or we trade services also, like airline tickets, for instance. So to deal with risk as an object of trade, I think that poses a serious economic issue that then will open a Pandora box that cannot be closed. And it is wrong to open this kind of Pandora box. The issue of, what did I do? The issue of gharar, to me, is a little bit more tolerable. Really, it is more tolerable. Gharar, to begin with, is unknowability of an outcome of an action or a thing also. So it is, gharar means we don't know what will happen to that property. If you own an apple, it may stay good for eating, or it may rotten. So we don't know what is going to happen to it within whatever circumstances we put it in. So this is the kind of gharar. We don't know what is going to happen to the thing. But now when I own an apple, I bear an ownership risk. It may fall down and be smashed on the ground, so it won't be eatable anymore. Or it may rotten, or it may stay good and eatable. I can sell it or I can eat it. So that is the gharar. I don't know what is going to happen to that thing, and it's very difficult to predict it. But notice here in this example, I own the apple. So, and I expect all these potentialities. It may remain good for use, or it may get rotten, or it may fall down and be smashed on the ground, or anything that may happen to it. So I bear that kind of risk. To throw this kind of unknowability on somebody else, this is the problem here in gharar. Not that gharar is associated, really, this kind of unknowability is associated with all things in life, with all properties, and also with all actions. I may buy an airline ticket and then the plane doesn't go for any reason. Or I may buy an airline ticket and there is a storm that planes are grounded, or a strike. Or I may buy an airline ticket and the plane may fall down and everybody in it will be killed. So all these risks are there. But that is a risk that when I take that action, I know it. And I expect it, and it is within whatever I decided to bear. The issue becomes, for the gharar, it becomes an issue when I throw that unknowability on another party. So I cannot exchange a thing with that unknowability. Take an example. I own an apple, and the apple is good, and you can inspect it and look at it. It has no sign at all of being anything wrong in it. I can sell it, that's fine. But if I own an apple, but the apple in a box, and it's been in the box for some time, and God knows, are there any other rotten apple with it or not, and tell you, I sell you this apple without knowing it, that becomes, I am throwing the unknowability on you. There is a knowability character in that situation, but I throw it on you. So this is the gharar that we talk about when we say gharar is something we don't accept, where only in exchange transactions. So when I throw that on you, I tell you, I sell you this apple without knowing it, without seeing it, without as it is, that is not permissible. Another example, I am a fisherman and I go to fish every day in the sea. So I sell you the amount of, or the fishes that I'm going to fish tomorrow. That is selling you something that we don't know. Tomorrow I may not go to the sea at all because my leg may give me some pain, so I decided not to go. It's possible there will be no fishing at all. Or I go fish and there's a storm, so I did not really fish anything and came back. Or I go fish and was able to catch very small, bad quality fishes and so on. So there is a lot of unknowability in selling you the amount of fish that I'm going to fish tomorrow. Does this apply on the amount of fish that I fished yesterday and I have them here on my table? Definitely not, because these can be inspected, can be seen, and you inspect them and see them, and so there is no gharar in that. The gharar exists only then as a thing that we don't like when we make a transaction on an item that has that much unknowability. So when not even any transaction, when we make, I should correct myself, when we make an exchange contract that is a sale contract or a lease contract on a thing that is characterized by that much unknowability that affects whether it will exist or not, or it affects the main characteristics of it that relate really to the contract. You buy an apple to eat it. So if the apple is rotten, you are not going to eat it, of course, you will throw it away. So you don't buy an apple to throw it away. So this is a main characteristic, being not rotten is a main characteristic of it. Or the fish don't exist at all, the fish of tomorrow, because I didn't go to the sea. I didn't on that day. So this is where whether any characteristic of unknowability that relates to a main characteristics or to the very existence of the item, that kind of sale contract, call it sale contract, because essentially exchange contract are sale contract. So that what we do not accept in Sharia to associate, to make a sale on an item that has this kind of characteristic unknowability, which we call it gharar. So now many people argue for the gharar as there are two major things most important in Sharia in financial transaction, riba and gharar. That's incorrect, really. The gharar is something that is a minor issue, not really a basic issue, but it comes in insurance, because I mean, if we look at the insurance contract, what is it after all? There is a risk that is unknown. We don't know its size. We don't know whether it will happen or not. We don't know when it is going to happen. And we sell this risk. Selling the risk is a different issue, which I talked about a moment ago. Itself is really a serious problem. But now another problem that being unknown also makes it creates another problem. Notice the two problems relate to each other. So this is where, because of risk and because of gharar, the insurance contract is rejected by the great majority of Muslim scholars. There are few scholars who argued otherwise, but still I think the case for an alternative is a very strong case in Islamic thinking, in Islamic finance in general, and in Islamic thinking in specific. The alternative that is proposed, again, is not something that is new invention. It is being practiced in the world before. It's the kind of cooperative insurance. In other words, when we deal with insurance, with the risk, instead of selling it, we deal with it in a cooperative manner, we reveal, in fact, different kind of attitude, completely different. So the alternative that is suggested and approved by many Sharia scholars, many meetings of Sharia experts, many experts of Islamic economics, by the OIC Fiqh Academy and by others and others all the way, all the world, is an alternative that is based on cooperation. Now, cooperation means that if anything happens, we cooperate to compensate that thing, to reduce the effect of that problem. So, and that is very reasonable, very acceptable, and it is practiced also by all people all over the world. In all communities, there is that kind of cooperation. But here, in Takaful, we want to make the cooperation in advance. That's the basic difference. That, okay, people cooperate, but let's start with the idea, since we all, for instance, in this room, expect certain kind of risk. We own cars, we have the risk of accidents in these cars. So we have risk. Let's cooperate together in advance. We know, at least if we study statistics, we know statistically that when you have a group of car running on the street, there is certain percentage of accident that may happen. When you deal with the large numbers, you can be almost sure, almost exactly sure, that 10.753% of these cars will have accidents. This is based on our previous experience, previous statistics, and also on extrapolating these statistics to the future according to the conditions that we expect to exist in the future. That is the conditions of road. If the government takes good care of the road, so the road will not have holes here and there, and also the condition of weather and other conditions that relate to driving. So we can extrapolate the past experience to the future. To a large extent, when we deal with large numbers, our information may be to a large extent very, very accurate. So this is where, here in Takaful, we want to make that cooperation in advance. With that much knowledge that we have built about potentiality of such risk on cars happening, we will start from now cooperating by each one of us contributing, and notice the use of the word, contributing an amount of money now, and we use this amount of money for paying the damage for any of the cars that may happen, whether to the car itself or cause to others, personal damage or property damage. That's, yeah, this is what we make. So as a matter of definition, then it is a cooperative fund contributed by persons who are exposed to risks or perils for the objective of indemnifying, that is to pay for the amount of damage, not to profiteer from an accident, pay only to the amount of damage, indemnifying the members for actual losses that they happen or for payment upon the incidence of death. Same thing could be that cooperative fund for death, that we cooperate together, that each one, when if each one dies, we made, or if anyone dies, we make given a certain amount payment to his family or to his heir or to his wife or to whatever we agree on. So that it can be for what is called life insurance, and it can be also for what is called general insurance. Cars, houses, shipping merchandise, transportation, traveling, all these can be included. So the Takaful case then is based on the concept of cooperation but cooperation now in advance, not after the problem or the damage happens. Okay? So this is the idea of Takaful, and it is, I mean, of course, morally it looks okay. We'll discuss this point in a moment. And so it is acceptable, in fact, by even the fiqh academies that discuss this issue. The International Fiqh Academy or the World Fiqh Academy, which consists of the 57 member countries. Almost all of them are Muslim majority countries, and also approved by other fiqh academies that discuss this issue everywhere in the world. Indian Fiqh Academy, the Fiqh Academy of Saudi Arabia that is in Mecca, and others. All those fiqh academies that discussed the issue of insurance found that the form of operation or cooperation for insurance in advance is a good idea and a good alternative that is acceptable in Sharia. Now, one thing we need to notice, which is very important, does the cooperative organization, does it eliminate the gharar or the risk?
No.
It does not. So the gharar or the risk still exist, both of them, but there is no sale. If there is no sale, who cares about the gharar? If I own the apple and I have it and it is in my refrigerator, well, it has nothing to do with any gharar, because I didn't make gharar to anybody. It's I bought it and I know it was good when I bought it, so I decided to keep it in my refrigerator. And if it is rotten, I expect, yes, I lose, but I know that, and I expect that since the day I owned it, and since the day I decided to keep it in the refrigerator. For how long? Definitely, if I keep it longer than the number of days that it can survive, I find myself losing it. But that is something that is to me calculated, and I did not throw that unknowability on anybody else. That's the important point. I did not throw this unknowability on anybody else through any exchange contract. Okay? So this is then the cooperation to bear risk. That is really the alternative. Risk is still there. The unknowability when an accident of the car will happen is still there. So the gharar is still there, but there is no more exchange contract. So it is not cannot be rejected on the basis of throwing the dirt on somebody else. So what are the components of the Takaful relationship? It's association of group of people on the principle of cooperation, and cooperation is something that is advised in the Quran in the verse 5:2, that we are advised, or rather commanded as a matter of fact, to cooperate on good things and to avoid cooperation on bad things. Again, this cooperation requires funding, so we fund it on the basis of, we decide through that cooperation to put fund, each one of us contribute fund to this organization in order to enable it to do that objective that it is going to do, which is compensating any person for any damage that it may happen. Here there is a minor point.
Not any person, he must be a member, not anyone. They don't compensate non-members.
That's right.
So only members. Yeah.
That's right, because we decided to cooperate together. We don't cooperate with people whom we don't know and they didn't come to this organization. I mean, obviously, it's like Jannah and Nar. If you don't believe in Allah, why should Allah take you to His Jannah or if you believe in Him, He will take you to His Jannah. But if you don't believe in Him, you are outside the spectrum that we are dealing with. So it's outside. Now there is a point which is minor on the side, but it is interesting to look at. Can we maybe invent a third category, or rather a fourth category, of Sharia contract, Sharia acceptable or permissible contract, and call it cooperative contract? Because the fuqaha traditionally called the sorted contract into three categories. Actually, there were two, and Ibn Taymiyyah added the third one, dividing one into two. The three categories are exchange contract, that is like sale, you give and take, and donation contract that require one will and the other one is only recipient. His will is really, the other party's will is not important. So these are donation contract, tabarru'at. And the third category is partnership, sharing contract. So these three categories of contract, none of them fit into this kind of cooperation, because here we have a cooperation, and as you said, Dr. Abdul Qadir, we give it to the members, those who accept to pay, and they accept to pay, in fact, with the condition that if a damage happened to my car, then the organization will compensate. It's not only without just donation contribution without any condition. So that makes it kind of exchange. If there is a contribution against a benefit, that is a kind of exchange. So this kind of exchange, can we maybe invent a fourth category and call it the category of contracts that contain certain aspects of exchange and certain aspects of